I would like to feel it. I would like to feel it. I would like to feel it gone. 'Cause I don't like the way it is. I don't like the way it is. I don't like the way it's looking. I get caught looking in the mirror on the regular. What I see there resembles some competitor. I see things behind things behind things. There are rings within rings within rings. I can't go through the motions. I can't go through the motions. How am I supposed to do this now? Say we went out strolling. Say we went out strolling. Say I went and told them how. I am afraid of change. And when it comes the time to check and rearrange shit, there are things behind things behind things. There are rings within rings within rings. I got caught compiling. I got caught compiling. I got caught compiling my own news. I never lose. And who's the benefactor? And how to choose without touching every interrupter? When there are things beyond things beyond things. And there are rings within rings within rings.
Hello, my friends. Oh, we don't need to stop on this image. Tonight, we've got an action-packed show for you. Lots of stuff has been going on in the news. Lots of big events seem to be converging in some way. And my schizoid brain just happens to find connections between each of these big stories. And I'm not sure really how to spin it into any kind of grand narrative. So maybe you guys can help me with that. But there's been a lot of big stuff going on lately, and it seems like this always happens in the run-up to presidential elections in the U.S. We've got the aftermath of Hurricane Helen. We've got the longshoremen strike going on the East Coast. We've got the stuff going on with Puff Daddy, which some people have connected with the longshoremen strike in some strange ways. We might look into that. And we've got the conflict going on in the Middle East. We've got a lot of stuff going on with Israel. And there's a number of other things that I've got that we could talk about if these other things seem more interesting to you. There's one particular clip that I'm probably going to play at some point and have a nice little Wikipedia rabbit hole about this. It is Kevin McDonald, I believe that's him. Yeah, Kevin McDonald, talking about the Jamaican rebellion that happened back in the mid to late, like the 1860s, I believe. So we could talk about that because he makes a claim at the end of this little clip that that these sorts of things, this anti-white sort of ideology, is inherent to white people in some way or another. He actually explicitly says that the anti-white ideology that was being discussed back then in relation to this Jamaican rebellion was not, it had nothing to do with Jewish intellectualism at the time, and I beg to differ, so we could go down some Wikipedia rabbit holes there. But before I continue on, let's make sure that my microphone sounds good, and can I get a confirmation from people in the chat? Everyone can hear me, everything sounds and looks good. What do you guys think? We've got Southern Nordic in the chat here. He's had some firsthand experience with the hurricane and the aftermath. So I don't know. Maybe you can call in later, Southern Nordic. I'm gonna post the call-in number after maybe an hour of discussion. But yeah, there's been a lot of stuff going on. The first thing that I want to discuss is Hurricane Helen, because there's been theories going around that I've seen that the hurricane was basically that it hit the area that it did because of weather modification. I wanted to look into this. I haven't actually looked into this. I haven't had time to look into it. So let's look at the path that the hurricane took. Because what I read, okay, here we've got some images of the path. See how it kind of goes north and then it cuts west. What I have read is that the direction of a hurricane can be influenced by a certain weather modification technique where they go in with airplanes and drop dry ice into the hurricane in order to slow the rotation. And when the rotation is slowed, it goes west. Like it's somehow that causes it to go west. So I don't know. Let me look into this. This is going to be a chill stream. I don't have too much prepared. So let's see. Dry ice influencing path of hurricane. Can we find anything about that? Project Storm Fury. How's everyone doing tonight? Let's if you're in the chat, please give me a thumbs up on the video. And Roger the Shrubber says, I don't think I give the derp state enough credit to direct a hurricane. Yeah, hurricanes are pretty big. I mean, hurricanes are definitely different from just an average storm. Look at here. It says Project Storm Fury was an attempt to weaken tropical cyclones by flying aircraft into them and seeding them with silver iodide. The project was run by the U.S. government from 62 to 83. The hypothesis was that silver iodide would cause supercooled water in the storm to freeze, disrupting the inner structure of the hurricane, and this led to seeding several Atlantic hurricanes. However, it was later shown that this hypothesis was incorrect. It was determined that most hurricanes do not contain enough supercooled water for cloud seeding to be effective. Additionally, researchers found that unseeded hurricanes often undergo the same structural changes that were expected from seeded hurricanes. This finding called Storm Fury's successes into question, as the changes reported now had a natural explanation. The last experimental flight was flown in 1971 due to a lack of candidate storms and a changeover in the NOAA's fleet. Project Storm Fury was officially canceled more than a decade after the last modification experiment. Although the project failed to achieve its goal of reducing the destructiveness of hurricanes, its observational data and storm life cycle research helped improve meteorologists' ability to forecast the movement and intensity of hurricanes. So here's, I think, what I was hearing about dry ice. When he dumped crushed dry ice into a cloud, precipitation in the form of snow resulted. But that's not exactly what I was seeing on Twitter. People say a lot of things on Twitter. I just don't have time these days to look into it. So this is live research right now, okay? Don't take what I say with a grain of salt, because we're learning together here. Weather modification on its own is definitely a fact. If we type in weather modification patents, they definitely can control weather to some extent. That's just sort of mainstream admitted fact that weather can be to some extent altered or modified. They do it all the time in Dubai, I guess. They make it rain in Dubai. The question is, could they influence the direction of a hurricane? And why would they do that is another question. That's kind of the more important question, is why would they even want to do that? Why would they want to dump all of this rain on the Appalachian region? I recall reading that the region that was hit the hardest was previously suffering a drought. What would I type in? Hurricane Helen area previously suffered drought. Is it Southern Nordic? If you're in the chat and you're hearing this, is this true? Have you heard this as well? That the area was basically undergoing a drought prior to this? Yeah, it's a serious drought. Okay, so if we're really going to go to that level of schizoid, here's a BBC article. Why was it so damaging? See if it talks about the drought. This is strengthened from category 1 to 4. It was unusual, was the sheer scale of the storm's rain clouds and wind field coverage. Despite the storm making landfall in Florida, cities such as Miami, hundreds of miles away, experienced wind gusts. More than 6 months worth of rain landed in parts of North Carolina. That's wild. The destruction across the southeastern states was also down to a phenomenon known as the brown ocean effect. This is when a storm continues to draw some energy as it passes over wet ground, so it does not fizzle out as fast as a storm that crosses dry terrain. States in the storm's path had already had lots of rain in the days before Helen's arrival, so the ground was already saturated. This meant flooding was more likely because the ground could not absorb any more water. So it seems like they're saying here that it actually got a lot of rain in the days leading up to the hurricane actually hitting that area. But so if we really want to go down the route, the full schizo route of they directed this hurricane into the Appalachia region, we would also kind of have to assume that the conditions that led up to it were also artificial. That the rainfall that the area was receiving in the days leading up to it was artificial. That the drought that was just prior to that rain was artificial. There's a lot of stuff that we would have to assume is artificial, and it just I'm not. I always like to at least talk about the most schizo takes that are out there and give them a fair shake. But this seems to be a little too much. I don't know. It just seems like that a lot would have to be. We'd have to assume a lot, and we'd have to give the so-called derp state, as someone in the chat said, a whole lot of credit in sort of laying the groundwork to make this as destructive as it was. Now, even if we assume it was 100% natural, I think the interesting thing to talk about is the lack of response. We've got all kinds of reports from people in the area saying that the government was not helping the people, that they were preventing people, normal citizens, from going in and helping on their own sort of initiative. But let me find some clips real quick to, like, here's a fella that talks about what was happening there.
Someone want to explain to me why I'm on TikTok this morning, and I'm just video surfing, and I keep seeing video after video after video of people trying to bring in supplies, water, generators, gasoline, stuff of that nature, and they are being turned away. Why are people that are trying to bring in heavy equipment to remove debris, dig people out, why are they being turned away? And I saw another post this morning of a gentleman that was using his private helicopter to fly in and drop off supplies and pick people up, and he was shut down. Somebody explain this to me. When did y'all become the absolute authority that you can stop people from helping each other? Explain it. And to you, any of y'all that you see this going down, you see people being turned away, you see this happening, you need to video this, and you need to expose these people for what they really are, the monsters that they really are. Because for them to turn away help is absolute bullshit, and it needs to be exposed.
Okay, so turning away help, very slow, dragging their feet to bring in any federal aid to the area. Why would they be doing this? What motivation does the government have to do this? Is it on purpose, or possibly, maybe it has something to do with the fact that FEMA has spent however many hundreds of millions of dollars on aid to immigrants. FEMA out of money migrants. I like how Google has that as a recommended search. So we've got this New York Post article. Feds say there's no money left to respond to hurricanes after FEMA spent $1.4 billion on migrants. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas set off outrage Wednesday when he told reporters that FEMA does not have the funds to see Americans through the rest of the Atlantic hurricane season after the agency spent more than $1.4 billion. I thought it was just hundreds of millions, but it was $1.4 billion since the fall of 2022 to address the migrant crisis. We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have, Mayorkas said during a press gaggle on Air Force One en route to tour damage from Hurricane Helen. Or is it Helene? Are people saying Helen or Helene? I don't watch the news, so I'm not even sure. In South and North Carolina. I like how they're only talking about South and North Carolina in the news, too. I mean, this was all over. This was Tennessee, too. This was, other states than just North and South Carolina. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season. And what is imminent? Critics pointed out that the Department of Homeland Security allocated, goddamn these pop-ups, 600 administered funds to aid state and local governments coping with the influx of asylum seekers, though Mayorkas' office fired back late Thursday, insisting that those funds couldn't be used for hurricane relief because Congress authorized them specifically for the migrant crisis. That makes everybody feel a lot better. Now we understand, they couldn't have been used for any kind of hurricane relief or helping our citizens. That's ridiculous to suggest because that was approved for the migrants, guys. I mean, that money's gone. That money's that's allocated. Okay, we can't touch that. They're out of money now. Sorry. Fucking assholes. This is easy. Mayorkas and FEMA immediately stop spending money on illegal immigration resettlement and direct those funds to areas hit by the hurricane. Put Americans first. Yeah, agreed Elon Musk. So what is happening here? And then, so now let's combine that. Let's combine that with the longshoremen strike. Longshoremen strike could cause shortages. So if we combine these two things, how port strikes could affect retail prices and shortages. If we combine these two things, I think it seems obvious that, like, if it actually pans out in sort of a worst case scenario type of way, that this could cause some serious chaos in a lot of areas. Especially, we know, like, if we look up Trump voter map, in the area of Trump's greatest supporters. I think this is the map I saw. Right in the Appalachian regions. Maybe it was something else. Appalachian region, Trump's biggest supporters. So if we combine these two things, that region in particular is going to be suffering. The region where Trump's got the most support is going to be suffering badly. They already are suffering badly. But if we combine that with shortages, and these people have this misery dragged out because they can't get the building supplies, they can't get the infrastructure supplies, they can't get the things that they need to rebuild and put their lives back in order, then what might that... Here we go. This is the map I saw. What might that result in? Personally, I mean, think of yourself as a young man, a young single man living in that region, in the Appalachian Mountain regions, or in the southeast of the country. Your town has been destroyed. Your house has been destroyed. Or at least a good amount of destruction has occurred in the surrounding area where you live, where you grew up in. And not only are you suffering now in the moment, but you are under the impression that you're not going to get help in rebuilding. And actually, even if you were to receive help, the supplies aren't coming in at the ports. You can't get the construction supplies. You can't get the building supplies. You can't get the vehicles that you need. You can't get basic necessities that you would need to reconstruct and put your life back in order. And you're a young man, and you're angry. And you, let's imagine a hypothetical future where Trump either loses the election. This is really me speculating and spitballing here, so take it with a grain of salt. But imagine then you find out either Trump lost the election and you feel it was stolen from him, or he wins the election and then there's something that happens at the federal level, or some event occurs where there's some kind of coup. There's some kind of chaos at the federal level. And you're a young man and you're seeing this happen. If I was that young man, I would be ready to lay down my life in support of Trump, in support of the only person in politics who seems to care about you and your community, who talks about, helping people like you. This is the sort of conditions that radicalize people and get them to a point where they are willing to go put their lives on the line and fight to the death for whatever reason. I mean, you've got nothing left to lose if you're one of these young men. And I don't know how many thousands of young men are in a position similar to this right now, where they're feeling hopeless, they're feeling desperate, they're feeling like nobody's there to help them. People are there preventing support for your community. Your house has been destroyed, or people that you've known have had their houses destroyed. Your community is in shambles. You're not able to get the supplies to rebuild. I mean, I can't imagine conditions that are more appropriate, more apt to radicalize the hell out of me and put me in a mindset where I say, I don't even have a home anymore. I'll go wherever I'm told to go, and I'll fight whoever I'm told to fight to make the situation better, to punish the people who have done this to me, and to help my community thrive again. So once again, I mean, pure speculation. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. But to me, it seems like, why would they be doing this right before the election? If any of this is in any way planned, or if any of this is in any way being used, sort of taking advantage of the crisis to advance a certain agenda, if that's happening at all, one of the explanations that I could see is to create more radical young men that would be willing to leave everything behind and go and fight a fight somewhere. So let's see what people are saying in the chat. I've been just sort of in my own head for a little while. I'll just scroll up here. Southern Nordic said they had a very dry summer down in the Appalachian Mountains. Garden didn't do too well. There's flooding going on before the hurricane hit. I had heard that there were spots in western North Carolina and northeast Tennessee back home that got 6 inches of rain before the hurricane even came into the mountains. Flooding was already happening. Wow. There was a good post on X recently talking about other disasters where FEMA et al. Turned away donations and volunteers because they weren't qualified vendors, aka people who get paid by the government. Yeah, there's so much money to be made in these disasters. It's sickening. Human trafficking is extremely rampant in natural disasters. Maybe they're trying to prevent that from happening. Okay, so that goes to another schizo take. I read somewhere, let's see if I can find it, that P. Diddy has like a private island that's right across from a shipyard, a shipping container yard in Florida. And that somehow that's connected with the longshoremen strike. How? That's anybody's guess. I just kind of skimmed over the post. Let me see if I could find it. And somebody else I saw in relation to the longshoremen strike, they were talking about how one of the demands that the union is making is to ban automation. And this person said one part of automation that's sort of like integrated into the automation process is using blockchain technology to automatically sign and certify and sort of like keep an inventory of every shipping container that comes on and off ships automatically. And that it becomes like part of a public ledger that anybody can go in and check the contents of a shipping container and follow where it's been, where it's going, where it ends up. And that this longshoremen union is like, they want to prevent that from happening because too many things come in to those shipyards that people don't want tracked, that powerful people don't want a public ledger for. And that if this automation was actually implemented, it would make things like human trafficking and drug trafficking and these corrupt things that are definitely happening, it would make them a lot harder for the elites that are behind it to get away with it. And honestly, it seems plausible just on its surface, because let me just pull this up. Who's that union boss? What's his name? Harold Daggett. This guy absolutely strikes me as an unsavory character. Like, just the way he looks, the way he presents himself. He's got the fucking, like, Gucci glasses or whatever the fuck that is. Very expensive glasses. His big gold chain hanging out of his shirt. He talks like he's like a mobster. He threatening to cripple the U.S. economy. All this, I don't get. I've seen a couple people on sort of like right-wing Twitter praising this guy. This guy is a creep to me. This guy is not a good character to me. He's like, I wouldn't trust my kids around him. I'll tell you that much. He's got the big gold rings on his fingers and shit. And this guy has more money. He like drives a Bentley. He's got like a 9-car garage, a fucking multi-million-dollar mansion. It seems like this guy's got more money than somebody in his position really ought to have. And it makes you wonder, is he getting money because the position that he's in, to be basically in control of the people that are loading and unloading shipping containers at these shipyards. That is a position that comes with a whole lot of power and a whole lot of potential for corruption. And if he's making money under the table because he looks the other way when elites are sending bad things through the shipyards, I could see how that would be really where he makes the big bucks. And he definitely strikes me as the type of guy who would be amenable to that kind of a deal. So, but let me find that thing about Puff Daddy. P. Diddy, Miami Island, I think it was. Star Island. Here's a post about it. So sorry, I'm kind of like speed running through the weekly schizoid takes. So if you guys want to focus on one thing in particular, let me know in the chat. Mr. Seeth says, "Let a white boy swag out." This guy definitely is not the type of guy that I would appreciate or support in any way. That guy looks like a scumbag. Off the coast of mainland Miami is Dodge Island. This is also the location for the Port of Miami. The South Florida Container Terminal makes up the entire eastern half of the island and is where you see all of the evergreen containers and ships, etc. Located 700 yards away is Star Island, where Sean P. Diddy Combs, where his 2 compounds are located that were raided recently. Here's a short list of other notable celebrities that own homes on Star Island. Rick Ross, Jennifer Lopez, just run-of-the-mill celebrities. I'm surrounded by coincidences. See, this is the thing that annoys me about posts like this, though. It's like, they'll say something like this that's kind of evocative of, some kind of connection, and they just leave it up to your imagination. Child trafficking. I mean, we know. Well, let's say this. We know that P. Diddy was involved in trafficking. We know that he was involved in sexual abuse, and we can kind of assume that if this was going on at like a high level, if he was this corrupt, around other people at big parties, imagine what he was doing in secret behind the scenes. It's not unlikely, in my opinion, that he was actually involved in like the truly like nightmarish style of human trafficking where kids are put onto ships from wherever overseas and then brought over, sort of bound and gagged, and that type of like the depths of hell depravity that is certainly happening right now. I guarantee. Close your eyes, imagine in your mind somewhere in the world right now there are children being shipped in shipping containers to like feed the appetites of degenerate elites. It's like I would bet my life savings that is a fact, that's happening right now. So if we combine, what we know about P. Diddy, what we know about the elites in general, with a fact like this, which is that he has a compound on an island that sits just a few hundred yards away from Miami's like biggest shipping terminal, I think it's safe to assume that some weird or bad things were happening there. I mean, honestly, who would want a mansion or a compound right across from like an industrial shipping yard? Doesn't seem like prime real estate unless you want to be there, unless you want to be close to the action where you can send and receive quote unquote products. So anyway, that's pretty much all I got on that. I don't know what to really say or think about that or what conclusions to come to, but those are my thoughts. Here's the other thing. Let's see if I could find it. Longshoremen strike, blockchain automation. Let's see if that brings anything up.
Beach. And ILA is fighting LA. I'm a longshoreman for LA Long Beach. And ILA is fighting against this right here. I'll tell you right now. See that? There's nobody there. Automation. I work at an automated dock. It's no joke. They're losing thousands of jobs. So you got all these machines. Look at
I forgot to bookmark it. Otherwise,
are going to shut them down around the world and put them out of business. Years. Second.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna find it right now, unfortunately. If any of you know what I'm talking about. Oh, this says the longshoreman strike is over already. How did I not know that? What was the agreement? They've reached a tentative agreement on wages. To return to work on Friday, wages go up 62%. Holy shit. 62% wage hike. Well, strike is over for now. So they're going to return to the bargaining table January 15th. See, I'm not keeping up with news the way I used to. So everything I just said, everything I just said, scratch it, erase it. Let's move on. Let's move on to something else. Did any of you see the debate between Nick Fuentes? Here's just like a something completely different to to cleanse our palate. Did you guys see Fuentes debate this guy?
This out to the problem of evil as a whole, right? Like you actually said earlier that you think that the Holocaust is objectively wrong. Would you say all things can...
If it happened at all, by the way. But yeah,
okay,
so theoretically,
Aiden,
if it happened, in theory.
Aiden,
No, I'm kidding.
See what I mean?
Of course it happened. Of course it happened.
Do you see what I'm talking about? Like, no.
Yes, on Aiden Ross.
Like,
I've only seen clips from it. It was pretty amusing. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Nick Fuentes, but
get a load of this Joker.
he can be pretty funny. He's
oh yeah, get a load of this.
How about another joke? What do you get?
You need to unmute your mic.
the young kid.
Tell me another joke. Keep talking.
He does have kind of a strange look to him. He looks.
That the Holocaust is wrong.
If it were real, yes. Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
my God,
And it absolutely
You're
is.
so
I don't know if there's. Let's get into something that I really enjoy, which is this. We're gonna do some Wikipedia surfing here. This is a Kevin McDonald clip. This is really my my wheelhouse, as we say here.
Morant Bay Rebellion. This was in Jamaica, where these...
He's talking about the Morant Bay Rebellion in Jamaica. This happened in the 1860s.
About the Morant Bay Rebellion. This was in Jamaica, where these freed slaves killed a whole lot of white people. Gruesome torture, murder, horrible thing. To the clear-thinking individual, it was plainly criminal what these people had done. An unimaginably brutal series of actions carried out for malicious reasons against a population targeted because they were white. This is 1861. And yet there was a faction in England convinced not only that it was the black population that were the victims, but also that their fellow whites were reprehensible monsters who deserved the fate that they received. This pathological response, laden with a misplaced hyperemotionality, would shake the empire to the core, sapping its confidence, bequeathing a legacy which is felt to this day. In other words, you see these universalistic tendencies back in the 19th century, condemning whites, championing non-whites at the expense of whites. Critically interesting from our point of view, they had never traveled outside Britain. They had no experience with these people. And it's just like right now, the people in America who are most liberal are often the people who live furthest away from diversity. We see that as a very common thing, and I've heard that talking to people about Sweden. The point being that these tendencies go way back in Western history. They're not the result of Jewish intellectual movements. Okay, there's something about us that is being taken advantage of here in the contemporary world, but we can see these tendencies a long time ago.
Okay, so that's what he...
About Sweden. The point being that these tendencies...
This is the point that he wants to make here. The point being...
Go way back in Western history. They're not the result of Jewish intellectual movements.
They're not the result of Jewish intellectual movement. Let's look into that, because I beg to differ. Okay, let's look into that. Let's fact check Kevin McDonald here. Let's go to old Wikipedia. And we're just going to type in the Morant Bay Rebellion. Now, it began with a protest march to the courthouse by hundreds of people led by preacher Paul Bogle. Who was Paul Bogle? Well, let's yeah, Germ's on the case. Yes. Jewish intellectual movements have been going back hundreds and hundreds of years, and for Kevin McDonald to say that this had nothing to do with any kind of Jewish intellectual movement, that was we got to correct the record. All right, we got to fact check here. Paul Bogle, Jamaican Baptist, but who was he? Who were some of his mentors? He became the friend of a wealthy landowner and fellow Baptist, George William Gordon, a biracial man who served in the assembly as one of the 2 representatives from the St. Thomas in the East parish. Now, who is George William Gordon? This quote-unquote biracial man, okay? He was the second of 8 children born in Jamaica to a Scottish planter and an enslaved woman, which, you know, we could even delve into like when Scotland was Jewish. See if we could find a surnames list. We could go down that rabbit hole where Gordon is also a Jewish name, possibly dating back to the 17th century. Okay. Why is Gordon a Jewish last name? On Chabad. Okay, so Gordon, potentially a Jewish last name, but that's not confirmation. You know, who knows? This guy may or may not have been Jewish. But the interesting thing to me here is when you start reading through, who were exactly these people that were supporting the Morant Bay Rebellion? Let's look here. Death and aftermath. In October of 1865, following the Morant Bay Rebellion, Gordon was arrested. He was suspected of planning the rebellion. By order of Erie, Gordon was transported, blah, blah, blah. He was executed. The execution of Gordon and the brutality of Eyre's or Erie's suppression of the revolt, with hundreds of Jamaicans killed by soldiers and more executed after trials, made the affair a cause célèbre in Britain. John Stuart Mill and other liberals sought unsuccessfully to have Eyre, I really don't know how to pronounce that name, prosecuted. When they were unable to get the cases to trial, the liberals worked to bring civil proceedings against Eyre. He was forced to resign from office but never went to trial. So here we have a big name, John Stuart Mill. Anybody who's taken a class on Western philosophy has heard of John Stuart Mill, the great utilitarian thinker. He was a part of a circle of intellectuals in Britain at the time, one of whom was Jeremy Bentham. I don't know if you know of him. He was the creator of the whole where is it? The Panopticon prison. So if you know like the sort of lessons that have been given by people like Dr. Deep State, you know, the Panopticon was a great step forward, a great leap forward in psychological control and social engineering. But that's not who I want to focus on here. Who I want to focus on is the fact that Mill was, see here, at the age of 14, Mill stayed a year in France with the family of Sir Samuel Bentham, brother of Jeremy Bentham, and in the company of George Ensor, then pursuing his polemic against the political economy of Thomas Malthus. The mountain scenery he saw led to a lifelong taste for mountain landscapes, blah, blah, blah. While coming and going from France, he stayed in Paris for a few days in the house of the renowned economist Jean-Baptiste Say, a friend of Mill's father. There he met many leaders of the Liberal Party, as well as other notable Parisians, including Henri Saint-Simon. And we've talked about Saint-Simon before because he was the founder of Saint-Simonism. And I did a video on Saint-Simonism, which I called like a proto-communist movement. Saint-Simonianism. Let's see if it just comes up. Yeah, here. Proto-communist degenerate movement of the 1800s. So if you want more information on Saint-Simonianism, check this video out. It's 40 minutes long. I get into a lot of the details and a lot of the ways in which it connects with Jewish intellectualism. Okay, so this guy basically created a proto-communist movement. They believed in all kinds of bizarre, frankly, things that like have become normalized in the modern age. They believed in things like God is androgynous. They believed in, you know, all kinds of weird sexual degenerate acts. And, I mean, it was... It was incredibly you-know-who-ish. Promoting free love, declaring himself chosen by God, predicting that a female Messiah would save humanity. This is one of the followers of Saint Simon. And he actually went on to influence the creation of the Suez Canal, which was... the Suez Canal was like... There was like an esoteric significance to the people who created the Suez Canal. They believed that it was connecting the continents and that it was like bringing in the opposites of the world into a unity. Deeply connected with big banks, and we all know who runs the banks. It has been noted that Saint-Simonian ideas exerted a significant influence on new religious movements such as spiritualism and occultism. Karl Marx considered the Saint-Simonians to be the patriarchs of socialism. So John Stuart Mill grew up in this milieu. I mean, his family was connected with people that were involved in these kinds of circles. From an early age, he was influenced by these kinds of circles. So here we have one of the great advocates, or one of the great critics, I should say, of the way that this Morant Bay rebellion was handled, being connected with what I would consider a Jewish intellectual movement, Saint-Simonianism. So that's the first thing that I would say. We could let's click on another couple of links that I haven't clicked on yet. That's pretty much all I had so far. But that's, to me, that's all I need. I mean, John Stuart Mill was, in a sense, like a crypto Saint-Simonian. And, you know, because a lot of these intellectual movements in European history have an exoteric and an esoteric component. a lot, you see this a lot, where there's the straight up occult religious leaders and the religious fanatics behind the scenes that are promoting these kinds of movements, and then you get followers of these movements that internalize their ideas and then turn around and present to the public a rationalized version of it that cuts out all the occult stuff and basically just tries to argue for their principles and values and ideological agenda in a purely rationalistic scientific way. That's you find throughout the whole Enlightenment era. That's basically what you find. You've got it's like the the flip side. There's always the rationalistic face that is presented to the public, and then behind it is the occult motivating principles, motivating religion that's sort of like in the background. And John Stuart Mill, I believe, was one of these rationalizing faces of this insane Saint Simonian, utopian socialist, degenerate religion behind the scenes. Mr. Seed says it sounds a lot like Frankism. Yeah, I'd say it's connected. I'd say that they're just sort of branches on the same tree. Ole Christian Mueller Hansen says, first time I'm catching you live. Well, welcome. Gimme Dem Digit says, Webster Tarpley has a bunch of speeches featuring these guys. You should watch his speeches with the LaRouche guys. Go down the Venetian rabbit hole, the Jew of Malta. Yeah, the Venetian rabbit hole is definitely interesting. They seem to have been the center of power before it moved up into Britain. TP, going back to the Hurricane Helene question, BlackRock wants to acquire property on the cheap after the fact. Yeah, there was, I've seen posts about a big lithium mine that was proposed in North Carolina that seemed to have some pushback from the locals, and now they're hoping that that people are going to be willing to sell for the cheap now that their area has been just completely destroyed. Actually, Southern Nordic, who was in the chat earlier, I'm not sure if he's still listening, he mentioned how a friend of his, somebody that he knew personally, received a text message days after his house was destroyed in this flood, offering to buy his property. And I mean, how disgusting is that? To try to scalp property from people who are in this emotionally trying time where obviously they're going to feel desperate. Obviously they're going to feel, all kinds of intense emotions, and somebody's going to come in and say hey, I'll offer you a few bucks. Let me take that property off your hands. It's disgusting. Me says 33 likes so far. Smash that like button. There's 67 people watching right now. And only 33 likes. Unacceptable. Let's get past that Masonic 33 and smash the like button. But let's go back into this Morant Bay Rebellion. See if we could find any more connections to you-know-whos. I keep adjusting my glasses because these I'm just going to take these off for now because we're not listening to anything. My headphones smush my glasses into the side of my head. That's why I usually wear contacts during streams nowadays. Let's see. Curious George Rockwell says, funny how the same thing happened in Lahaina. Yeah, the history of Hawaii is really weird too. Wasn't it like one of the first kings of Hawaii was named King David? Oh, the last king. The last king of Hawaii was named King David. David La'amea Kamanakapu'u Mahinulani Nala Aya Ehuo Kalani Kumayalani Kalakaua, the last king and penultimate monarch of the Kingdom of Hawaii. Anyway, let's go back to the Morant Bay Rebellion. On October the 7th, 1865, a black man was put on trial in the Morant Bay Courthouse. Surely he didn't do nothing. Charged with trespassing on a long-abandoned sugar plantation. Oh, come on. Look at Wikipedia's already... It was abandoned. How could he trespass? It was abandoned. The poor black Jamaicans of the parish were angered by this additional example of land inequality and marched on the courthouse under the leadership of Bogle. Although the march was peaceful, it was mostly peaceful, I'm sure, the proceedings were disrupted when James George Higon, a black spectator, angrily denounced the charges. In the police's attempts to seize him and remove him from the courthouse, a fight broke out between the police and other spectators. While pursuing George Higon, two policemen were beaten with sticks and stones thrown from the crowd. The trial continued, and George Higon was convicted and imprisoned. The following Monday, the court issued arrest warrants for several men for rioting, resisting arrest, and assaulting the police. Among those warrants was one issued directing the arrest of preacher Paul Bogle. The police were unable to arrest Bogle because of interference by his followers. So they wanted to arrest Bogle, but ran into a crowd protecting him. Then on the 11th of October, Bogle, this time with hundreds of Jamaican peasant laborers, marched again to Morant Bay. The marchers had taken oaths, cleave to the black and leave the white, a sign that they were preparing for insurrection, or so Gad Human argues, indicating that oath-taking in African tradition was a way to bring the group together and prepare for war. We gotta find some more. Okay, I think maybe we should look more into George William Gordon. Because, once again, reminder... Gordon is potentially a Jewish last name. Gordon is a bona fide Ashkenazi family name. So let's see. What can we find out about Gordon? Successful businessman. He sent his sisters to England and France to be educated. co-founded Mutual Life Assurance Society. Dealing in coffee. Oh, let's see. They made a play about his life in 1938. Roger Mace. If this guy's Jewish, I swear to God. Because Jews love promoting their own. Uh-oh. Did I lose connection? Now here we go. The Rastafari movement. I bet there's some Jewishness behind the Rastafari movement. Would not be surprised by that. Raised into a middle-class family with full access to cultured traditions, incorporated a romantic idea into his writings, drew from tragic, visionary, poetic elements. Let me just do a... Nope. Nothing there. We could Yandex it. I guess we're not going to find anything on Roger Mace. At least for right now. Well. I wonder if this guy has any genealogies available. Check Jenny. Wait, what the hell? I thought he was executed. Am I thinking of... Oh no, Paul Bogle was the one executed. He was just forced to resign. Oh no. What? Am I getting confused here? Yeah, it was Bogle that was executed. So, checking the genealogy. Son of Thomas Jefferson Gordon and Mary Elizabeth Gordon. If you're watching now, by the way, there's 60 people watching, 62 people watching. In just a few minutes, I'm going to open up the phone lines and let people call in. But right now, we're going to trace this Gordon back, see if we could find anything juicy in the Jenny. I like to follow the mother's line, but it could always It could always come from either side. Margaret F. Gordon. Originally Rowan. Sometimes I'll just click and click and click until I find something interesting. You're watching the process right now live. The Germ live research process. Okay, well, I guess these guys just evaporate in the late 1700s. Kendall, we got Ford. Clay, Francis. Here's an Emmanuel. Who did he marry? Manly Edgar Gordon. Got a picture, but he doesn't look particularly Jewish. Clay. Damn, they had a lot of kids. Deborah Ann Ship. Well, maybe it's a dead end here. What kind of a name is that? NMN? Father of Jackson Gachnauer. That's an interesting name. Anyway. I think it suffices that the main critic, because really what was Kevin McDonald talking about originally here? He said...
You see, that is a very common thing, and I've heard that talking to people about Sweden. The point being that these tendencies go way back in Western history. They're not the result of Jewish intellectual movements. Okay, there's something about us that is being taken advantage of here in the contemporary world.
Point was that the criticism of the way that the rebellion was put down was not the result of a Jewish intellectual movement, but we could see here that one of the main critics, John Stuart Mill, was enmeshed in a social milieu and a family history that was deeply colored by a Jewish intellectual movement, namely Saint Simonianism. So that's enough for me. That's kind of all I need to know. Let's do this. The phone lines are now open, my friends. So if anybody would like to call in and chat, feel free. Hopefully the sound doesn't suddenly become 5 times louder when somebody calls in. So the phone line is now on display. Oh my God! Look at this dude, Henri de Saint-Simon. Look at that schnoz. It's not just the schnoz too. It's the droopy lids, the fucking, like the angle of the ear, the way that the upper lip looks. This dude was. They say he was from an aristocratic family, but this dude looks that's. And I better not see anyone in the chat saying, "Oh, that's what French people look like," because it's not. Portrait from Godefroy Engelmann, which I'm guessing is another Jew. Yeah. All right. Anyway, while I wait for callers, let's just surf some videos, and I will give some reactions. Here's a post from Southern Nordic. I don't know if this is true, if it is exaggerated, but even if a bit of it is true, regardless, I know one thing. If there ever was a time for hate, that time is now. All that money going to Ukraine and all that money and our men being sent to the Middle East for Israel. So this is a post that he shared. Whoa! Your town is to be bulldozed, and you all must leave. We are not going to recover and bury the dead. This needs to go far and wide. This is at Chris Martinson. This needs to go far and wide to put pressure on the government to do the right thing and save lives. This evening, from a Peak Prosperity member to me via PM at my site. Them. I can't post this online because it's not quite public yet, but government officials had a town meeting with all of the residents of Chimney Rock and basically told them the town was being bulldozed. Oh, we got our first caller of the evening. Hello, caller. What's your name?
Yes. My name is Jordan Bay.
The first name is fine. What's going on?
Are you live or?
You're live. You're on air.
Oh. I was just wondering if maybe in the future you could do a video on the Venetian black nobility. I kind of suspect that they were maybe Jewish descent because the Phoenicians, they founded Venice, if I am not wrong. But I remember.
Sorry, did you say the Phoenicians founded Venice?
The Phoenicians.
The Phoenicians, like the precursors of the Jews from the Middle East.
Yeah, exactly. Because I remember one time long ago I saw one of your videos where you recommended this channel about this man that was investigating the Venetian black nobility, but I think his channel is gone. I think that was years ago. But I've been very much interested in that topic about the Venetians and the Phoenicians, how they founded Venice in Italy, and from there they sort of created the monetary system that we know of today. I'd like to know more about that, and I was wondering if you could give some recommendations, maybe books or something about it.
Well, sure, I could recommend a book. Let me ask real quick: Are you from Israel? Somebody in the chat is asking if you're Israeli. What's that accent? Oh, okay, interesting.
It's a long story.
Mm.
And it was very shocking to me, extremely shocking. But I mean, I can mention names. I started investigating and articles, a whole bunch of things. It was very shocking. So my interest has started from there, and one thing leads to another, and I came to the investigate the Venetians.
Mm.
Very interesting because these people were very powerful in Europe, and and then later on I find out that the name Venice came from Venetian.
There is a similar sound to the words. I've heard that before. I haven't been able to find anything that concretely links the two. There's certain details that sort of allude to a connection. The name being one of them. The fact that their power came through naval superiority. It was kind of a thalassocracy. The controlling the seas, controlling the ships, controlling all the trade throughout the Mediterranean. That sort of a method of power is similar between the two of them. There's sort of an introductory text I could recommend. If you Google Venice's War Against Western Civilization by Webster Tarpley, I think Tarpley was the one who really popularized this idea that Venice was sort of a one node or one phase in sort of a multi-generational, multi-century power struggle between the mercantile, banking, money elite and the landed gentry and like the old school aristocracy of Europe, that elite, that Venice was like, just one phase in this multi-generational power struggle between these two competing castes. So Webster Tarpley is a good place to look for that. Correct. Webster, Webster, like the dictionary. Tarpley, Tarpley. He's written extensively on the subject. So I'd recommend him. I can't just speak off the top of my head about it, and I appreciate the recommendation. Maybe I will do a video discussing it. I've talked in the past about what I've seen as like different phases of the way that the center of power has shifted throughout the ages. There's a Wikipedia page that talks about this. There's a certain term for it. It's escaping me right now.
I look at it more like economic bubbles they have created in every country, and so once the economic bubbles they create first, then they move to another country with the money, and that is something that these Venetians did in Europe. And I have seen so many similarities between their system of government and the system of government we have also in the United States. They were also heavily on immigration, heavily in taxing, in so many other ways. The Venetians mirror the American system. So I wouldn't even doubt it if families going back to that time is still alive running the show. But if that is a fact, then that means these so-called Middle Eastern Semites, they've been around for a long time doing these things. The Phoenicians seems to have done throughout history, creating economic bubbles in every nation they went into, making the nations prosperous, creating charity, because I see that they come into a country and the first thing they do is create charitable organizations.
I don't know if that's the first thing. I think the historically one of the first things they would do is come in and spread their religion to try to convert people.
Yeah.
I think it's that seems like it's even in more recent history, you know, I think the first phase of globalism and universalism was with Christian missionaries, and that was a huge motivation for the average like white British person, for example, with the whole like white man's burden idea, going to quote unquote bring culture and bring civilization to these poor savages throughout the world. That was one of the first ways that they like motivated white people to go and do something that they otherwise wouldn't have.
Well, a very good example is that article that you presented about China and the Rothschild by Professor David Gardas. That article that you presented, it was incredible because I went to get the article, I downloaded the article, I read the article, and the article led me to a dynasty named the Sung Dynasty in China. And it's interesting that you mentioned Christianity because the Sung Dynasty in China was trained by Methodists, yet they belong to the Jewish community named the Tiao Kiao in China.
How do you spell Sun? Is that SONG, like song?
SSOONG, the Sun Dynasty. As a matter of fact, they had 3 daughters that married into one of them married the great leader of China, the founder of China, named Sun Yat-sen. And he started the revolution in China in 1911. And he married a daughter named, one of the daughters of this Sun family, named Rosamund Qinling. She was, I think, the first sister of the 3. And that's how they infiltrated China and took over China and created, you know, Mao Zedong, you know, the great communist leader, and so on until 1981 when she died. She was one of the leaders of the Communist Party in China. So that article, essay that you presented, I did further investigation, and it led me to the Chinese, the Jewish community in China that came into China through India and Persia during the silk trade, and they got established themselves in China, and from there, slowly they began to get positions of power in China. Until the Sun family came about from that very community. And somebody, I forgot his name now, funded the father of the Sun dynasty to come to America and get educated in America under the Methodist Church. And the daughters did the same later on. And then they were sent back to China and married these leaders, great leaders. One of them Sun Yat-sen, the founder of, supposedly the founder of China, the man who got rid of 2,000 years of Chinese tradition, Chinese monarchy in 1911 when he created the revolution there. And there is so much similarities between all these revolutions, including the revolution, the socialist revolution my people went through, which destroyed my country, destroyed the society, destroyed everything you can think of since 1959 when Fidel Castro took over. And the people surrounding Fidel Castro, including Fidel Castro, were Jewish descent. Okay?
Yeah,
In 1925, there was a man, a man you can look up, his name was Fabio Grobard. He was the son of a rabbi and came from Poland. He came from Poland into Cuba. He was working for the KGB. And in 1925, he founded in the Jewish Community Center in Havana the socialist. He was one of the head of the socialist movement.
Oh yeah.
Which later on took over the country.
His name originally was Abraham Simjevich.
Well, that's one of his names.
Yeah, they always go by. Yeah, they always go by a bunch of names.
Yes, he had 5 of them. Fabio Grobar and Ricardo Wolf, who was a very wealthy man, another Jew. He was extremely wealthy. Ricardo Wolf even has a foundation in the United States to this day. He became the ambassador of Cuba in Israel once Castro took over. Okay, that was one of his wishes, and Castro made that wish come true for him. So he became the ambassador in Israel until 1981. When he died in Israel.
One
he
interesting
gave Castro a lot of money.
One interesting thing about Fabio is, his name Fabio is a reference to the Roman consul, the guerrilla tactician Quintus Fabius Verrucosus, and he is the individual that the term Fabian socialism comes from, which is the whole wolf in sheep's clothing type thing. The
Fabians under Bernard Shaw, the great writer Bernard Shaw. The Fabians.
Correct. Nice. This is good. Keep talking if you've got more. I love it.
Yes, I mean, to be honest with you, I was shocked, totally shocked. I was so shocked because I knew long ago from a book that I read about communism that was written by, as a matter of fact, it was written by David Duke.
Okay.
He wrote a book about communism, and I had to leave my country with my family because of communism, and I years later, I came across that book, and I began to read about the J. I'm gonna call it the J. I don't want to say the whole name, but I started looking at the J involvement in the Russian Revolution under communism, and I kept researching. Other books came up, and I said to myself one day, I said, "Wait a minute, if they did that in Russia, I wonder if they did the same in Cuba." And sure enough, I came across certain articles that I collected from a very famous magazine in Cuba called Bohemia. Okay, the magazine is called Bohemia, exists to this day. So I collected those articles about Fabio Grobar, about the early revolutionaries before Castro went into the mountains, and so on and so on. And I was so shocked to realize that these people were J, and I said to myself, wow, my interest developed, and it continued to develop after that. And it was, it's been it's been a crazy path for me, but I finally, one day, I'll be happy to die knowing that I found the truth behind the Cuban Revolution and all the crimes committed there. Who did it?
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
right. I mean, and they're the enemy of every native culture and race. You know, they
Yes.
it's the one thing
They
that
don't want them. They don't want anything that smells like unity, culture, race.
well, yeah, they see
They
themselves
don't want that.
as the true race. They want to be the only race, while everybody else is just kind of a mixed, diverse
Yes.
blob of nothing. Basically,
Yes.
they want to be the only ones with this true sense of like order, organization, and race consciousness. Like the
Yes.
Jews have existed for thousands of years in this diaspora, sort of without a country, without a homeland, and yet they have retained their identity. And the only way that they've done that is because for those thousands of years they have been the pretty much the only people prior to like the modern era of modern like scientific racialism and racial anthropology. They were the only people who genuinely kept a self-conscious identity of their racial uniqueness and of their in-group preference, and that's the only thing that has kept them a coherent group for these thousands of years, despite not having a homeland. So the people that are almost historically the most racist are the ones that are telling everybody else to not care about race. It's
Yes.
it's amazing. It's incredible.
Are the ones, as a matter of fact, crying victim.
Right. Right.
Crying victim. It's a technique. It's been an amazing technique where the person crying victim is actually the aggressor.
Yep. Yep.
It's incredible. It's really incredible. And they are actually a gang of people that decided to, like pirates, decided to go out into the world, make the world their country, okay, and plunder and create economic bubbles here and there, and benefits from those bubbles.
Yeah.
It don't matter what country they came into. India. I was reading about the Sassoon family.
Yep.
Because that article that you presented has led me to all these Asian families who founded Shanghai in China, created tremendous economic bubble in Shanghai, and then blew it up and left. And left it with a communist system behind, so they wouldn't even have competition in the future, because once communism take over your country, that's it for you. There would be no competition against the capitalist. The capitalist is happy to see this communism going on because he's not worried about it. They're not going to rise economically to compete against him. So these countries stay poor.
Absolutely.
So they did that. Yeah, they did that in China, Vietnam, in countries that were prosperous. In my country, they did that. Okay. So, it's unbelievable. And regarding people who doubt the J institutions, they only need to go and study the Frankfurt School, okay, who was the real think tank behind socialism and communism. Forget Marx, forget Lenin. The Frankfurt School, okay, with Adorno, Theodor Adorno, Habermas, if I'm not wrong, and all these great Jewish thinkers, That's the real think tank. That's the one that turned society upside down in America and throughout the 19th, 20th century, you know.
Well, I would argue it goes farther back than just the Frankfurt School, and that the principles that the Frankfurt School was operating on were already well known prior to their establishment. I mean, we just mentioned the Fabian Socialist School, and they were already involved in what they saw was a long-term plan of subversion, a long-term plan of infiltration, of subtly, pushing the agenda in a way that was almost not known or recognizable to the average person. And even before the Fabians, I would argue that like one of the stages prior to that was the Sabbatean Frankists, which was a immensely popular Jewish movement, and part of their whole movement was something they called like salvation by apostasy, or they had other terms for it, where they, as a matter of religious principle, taught that the way that they would advance their spiritual agenda was by converting to other religions and changing them from the inside without people even knowing that was happening. So certain
in my country, they even converted to voodoo. Imagine that,
Mm-hmm.
to run voodoo societies.
Yeah,
Because in my country, in Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, all these Caribbean countries, they practice voodoo and they have voodoo societies. Well, guess what? They even infiltrated all these voodoo societies.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, they've infiltrated white nationalist societies. So there's, it's point out any kind of political movement, and you will find a Jew that's trying to get to the head of it. So.
Yes,
Well, you know what?
absolutely.
Thanks for calling, man. I really appreciate your input.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to have talked to you because I follow your channel. And I also have a channel, but my channel is in Spanish because my English is not that good.
Well, what's your channel name? We'll shout it out.
My channel is called JB Presenta. JB Presents. It's in Spanish, as a matter of fact, but I've been touching upon that article that you presented, and I've been slowly translating that article into Spanish so that the Spanish audience, my channel is very small. I just started my channel, but I wanted to say all these things in Spanish for people in Spanish who have no clue about this history. They have no clue. Trust me.
Say the name again. I'm not able to find it.
It's called JB, which is my name, Jordan Bay. JB Presenta.
Presenta.
Yeah, JB Presents.
There we go.
Yeah, in Spanish it's Presenta with the A at the end.
I gotcha. I found it. I've subscribed. And
thank you so much, Mister. Thank you.
If anyone's out there.
I've been following you for years since you were going to university and you had your daughter, all this stuff. I've been following you for years. Trust me. When you did the Nietzsche presentations, talk about Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, and so on and so on. But anyways, it's an honor. I don't want to take time from you. It's an honor. I just listening to watch your live presentation now. And thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Keep doing what you're doing, because every race needs to wake up to it's not just about the white people waking up to the JQ. It's every race needs to. And
yes,
I'm obviously more concerned with my own people, but I'm happy. I'm really happy to see other folks waking up.
Yes.
And it's going to take all of us to do something about this. So
they are the enemies of mankind.
Yep.
The enemies of mankind.
Yep.
Trust me on that. So thank you, sir. You have a good night. Thank you.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mr. Seed says this guy knows his stuff. Yes, he does. That guy, I'm happy to see it. And if you speak Spanish, if you're primarily a Spanish speaker, go check out his channel. I've got it right here up on the screen. Give him a go over there and subscribe just to boost his numbers up and help him get the word out. I work with a lot of Hispanics. I work with a lot of Mexicans and some Colombians and some Puerto Ricans, and I'm in the towing business. There's fewer white folks than there are non-white folks, and so I'm around Hispanics quite often, and there's at least one that I work with who is also very aware of certain. We haven't actually talked about like the JQ at work or anything like that, but we have discussed a lot of issues about like the deep state, a lot of issues about how we're being constantly lied to, and the propaganda, and the conspiracy, like sort of kooky conspiracy theories and everything else. It's so within the Hispanic community, I think there's definitely room for they're definitely like there's a large minority within the Spanish community that I think is willing to look into this information, and you love to see it. So thank you again for calling in, JB. If anybody else wants to call in, there's the number right there. I didn't mean to cut him short. He had a lot of good information. I would have just sat there and listened to him talk for a while, but I wanted to give other people a chance to call in if they want to. So if anybody else wants to call in, there's the number on the screen. So, and also hit that like button, smash the like button. I don't know how many likes we have on the video right now, but 58 people watching. We've been sort of steady around between 55, 65, around there for a while. So he was asking originally about Venice. And what was the term? There was I used it before on a live stream. I think it was the one with JF. It's the theory that, oh gosh, my brain right now, it's too late in the day and I haven't thought of this term in probably a year or two. What was it? It was something hegemon theory. It's the theory that there's always like hegemonic stability theory of international relations. This is related to the question of Venice and why the sort of the center, the locus of power switches from one geographic region to another, that they're constantly moving the sort of like headquarters of this merchant class or merchant caste, this merchant race that is fighting its long fight, its intergenerational fight against the old aristocracy. This is part of the explanation I would give as to why the hegemon moves from time to time, which the caller pointed out. Part of it is also that they come into a region and they milk it for what it's worth. They find basically whoever is strong. They naturally, I think it's not something that like is done on a conscious level, but naturally this is like their racial instinct to do this, where they'll see a region that is strong. They'll see a region that is prosperous, that is successful, and then they move in there because they know that there's money to be made. They know that there's power to be taken, and they sort of milk that region or that nation as much as they possibly can until either they crash the economy because their methods of gaining power and money are corrupt and will always result in destruction. They'll always result in the degradation of the people and the ultimately the destruction of the economy. They always kill the goose that lays the golden eggs, and so either that happens or they're found out and they're chased out. And so the center of power is always moving throughout history. It never really lasts for longer than a couple hundred years in a given region. And part of it is described in this term hegemonic stability theory, which is a theory of international relations rooted in research from the fields of political science, economics, and history. It indicates that the international system is more likely to remain stable when a single state is the dominant world power or hegemon. Thus, the end of hegemony diminishes the stability of the international system. So I'm kind of bending this concept into my own sort of theoretical framework, but this speaks to the question of why currently do they allow these nations to exist without just subsuming, even though they control everything at this point? Why don't they just bring everything into this world system already? Part of the reason for that is that it's just more stable when you have a single visible state that is the hegemon, and then other states that sort of orbit the hegemon. And so this is part of, I think, why the locus moves, but in particular for Venice, Webster Tarpley is who to go for. So yeah, maybe I will do a video on Venice at some point. He had a lot of interesting things to say about China. Gosh, we could go all over the place here. But China's connected with Japan. This guy apparently married the daughter of this Charlie Soong guy that he was mentioning, who was instrumental in creating Chinese communism. And this guy that his daughter married was a big-time banker from... I wonder if he's connected with any... He went to Oberlin. Wow. And Yale. Let's go back and see what people are saying in the chat here. Roger the Shrubber says, "Good Lord, how many tabs do you have open?" This is actually not that bad. I've had like twice the number of tabs open and like 3 windows open in the past. How the hell were these guys going to Western universities? The Oberlin Band. Is that reference to Oberlin College? It has to be, right? Yeah. The Oberlin Band was a group of Christian missionaries in China from Oberlin College in Ohio. Members of the Oberlin Band worked in Shaanxi province during the Boxer Rebellion. Oberlin is still known as like a fucking super liberal college. They were associated with the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions. In the 19th century, Oberlin College was prominent for its reformist social agenda and Christian fervor. Oberlin was the first American college to regularly admit African American students. Its abolitionist activism led one historian to call Oberlin the town that started the Civil War. Wow. And apparently communism in China. Underlying the enthusiasm for missionary endeavor was the theory that it was essential to convert the world to Christianity to anticipate the coming of the millennium, the 1,000-year reign of Christ foretold in the Bible. You know, I was listening to one of those live chats on Twitter the other day with Handsome Truth and a number of other people associated with him, and they had Carl Ruddle, I think is how you say his name, and he was talking about history, and it was a great little Twitter space. I want to shout out this Carl. It's either Carl Rattle or Carl Rodel. No, I'm not spelling it right. There, Rattle. R-A-D-L. This guy. He is a very well-spoken, very knowledgeable historian. Apparently, he's got his PhD. He's published books under his real name. Carl Rattle is not his real name. But he was really... Oh, we've got caller number 2 for the night. Hello, caller. You are live. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Ricky. I called last week. I'm from the East Coast, from the New York area.
Oh, yeah. I remember you, Ricky. How you doing tonight?
All right. How about yourself?
I'm good. Well, let me finish the sentence I was in, and then
All
I'll talk to you. So Carl Rattle, great guy. Check him out. But what he was talking about at one point in the Twitter space was the official position of the Nazi Party in Germany about Christianity, because that seems to be a big question somebody brought up was Hitler an atheist or a pagan or a Christian? What was he? And he sort of said that Hitler was a deist, and the official stance of the Nazi Party was, as long as race is your primary sort of concern, as long as you can say to a fellow German, we might disagree on religion, but at the end of the day, we're both Germans and we're both on the same side and we can both be respectful, then that's really all that matters. It doesn't matter if you're, part of the sort of paganists or folkish movement, or if you're Christian. Let's just get together because we're part of the same race, we're part of the same tribe. And in the abstract, I completely agree with that. I wish that was how we could proceed. But unfortunately, it has to be acknowledged that Christianity was a huge factor in convincing our people to get ourselves into the position that we're in today. To proselytize to the world, to go in and bring quote-unquote civilization and culture and morality to the whole world, and try to micromanage everybody and treat every other race like we're all equals, we're all the same. Christianity was such an integral part of that process that we have to acknowledge that. But anyway, Ricky, you got the floor. What's going on with you?
I don't got much to say. I kind of got into the stream late. I kind of heard you dive into the regimen theory.
Hegemon.
Hegemon, I'm sorry. the hegemon theory.
Yeah.
And I just had a question for you. I'm pretty cynical, but do you see any change or shift in power anytime soon? Because I don't. So I just think we're bound for failure, as I'm very cynical, but I just don't see how civil society can come out of this hole. We've just been so destroyed on an intellectual level. So.
Yeah, you know, we talked a little bit about this last week, and maybe I'll do a video that's like not a live stream, but something that's scripted, or maybe I'll write up a Substack article. I was thinking about that actually after our conversation last week. I was thinking about writing an article. Oh, we missed a call. Maybe I'll if you just called and you know it went to voicemail or whatever, call back in a couple minutes. But maybe I'll write up a Substack article, because after our conversation, I was thinking about that for a while, and I was thinking about how could I formulate this idea of, you know, the creation of these parasocial networks as a way to reinforce our values and connect people in a way that's going to like translate into real life, so that we end up, you know, really knowing and influencing each other in our personal lives, so that we can create these little networks where, you know, people don't feel so black-pilled, where people feel like they have potentially women that they could meet, potentially friends that they could get along with, that they could talk with, that they can do things with in person, where we can support each other on a financial level, where, like, you know, if you produce something or you have a service that you're providing, that we can patronize each other. You know, if you I don't know, something like you're sewing T-shirts, or you're making furniture, or you're whatever it might be. You're a mechanic, or you're a builder. You do construction. You're a contractor. Whatever it might be. If we could support each other and turn these little online spheres into real social networks, that I think it's not going to change the world, but it's going to make our lives better. It'll make you feel better. Like, there's nothing worse than going through your life on a day-to-day basis and feeling abnormal, feeling like a fucking pariah, where you can't say what's on your mind, you can't talk to people, and you think to yourself, like, what's the point in doing more, or being better, or holding myself to a high standard, when there's nobody around that cares, when there's nobody around that's supporting it, there's nobody around that I can actually talk to and speak my mind in this honest and truthful way. You know, if we don't have that, then life feels pretty empty. It feels pretty depressing. And, you know, in the grand scheme, we don't have the power to wave a magic wand and make all these problems go away. But I think what we do have the power to do is slowly turn the parasocial nature of these online spheres into like genuine social connections that make our lives feel better. And when you feel better and you're connected with people, you do more, and you're motivated to do more. There's just, it makes life feel more full and fulfilling. So yeah, after we talked last week, that's been on my mind. And like I said, either I'll do a Substack article, which will be just free for anyone to read, or a scripted video. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to like go on at length about this again, to be honest.
No, you're good.
But I appreciate you calling. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, that's all. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks, Ricky. Take care. Call in anytime. Next week, you want to call in again, feel free.
Sounds good.
All right, somebody else tried to call, but I really have to pee. So, like I said, I'm going to be on. This is going to be a long stream. I mean, I've been on for 2 hours and 10 minutes. I'll probably go on for another hour. I have no work tomorrow. I took the day off. I've got other stuff to do. I got to paint some cabinets. I got to hang a shelf. My wife and I are doing the like open sort of modern farmhouse shelving in our kitchen, which I think it looks pretty nice. I got the shelves cut. I stained them. I've hung one of them. I'm going to do probably one more tomorrow. Paint the cabinets, like I said. There's a few other things that need to be done around projects around the house. It's been a lot of fun, like doing little home improvement projects. So, but I have to pee, and I'll be right back. Let me find a little song to put on. And if anybody else wants to call in when I get back, think up a question, and let's see, what can we listen to? Any requests for songs? You could see Fast, You'll Be Amazed. Is that a song? Oh yeah, and someone said in the chat where was it, about Handsome Truth? Handsome Truth, insulting children, no matter the race, is lowbrow. The lack of empathy and compassion while advocating for hate is appalling. Yeah, I was actually literally thinking that earlier tonight, where I saw a video of him. Basically, it was a clip of him on Omegle, just with the orangutan filter on, talking about how he's going to shoot this little black baby and just acting kind of obnoxious and all that. And I'm like, why? Who's enjoying this? Like, you know, I like the whole, like, putting on the gay act to get younger women to look into ideas that they wouldn't have otherwise. I love that. But why blackwash your own progress with this kind of thing? You know, it's very juvenile, and it seems like it's coming from a place of either like anger that he wants to get out, anger that he wants to express, which I understand. You know, we're all angry, but that's not the way to do it. Either that, or it's just like malicious, where, I don't know, he just gets a kick out of being I don't know, out of being irreverent, I suppose. But it seems like it's counterproductive. Let's see if we can find Towns Van Zandt. All right, and I will be right back in just a couple minutes when the song is over. I gotta run
medley of my hit.
and pee.
I'll play this song. This is written. I wrote this about 2 Mexican bandits that I saw on the TV 2 weeks after I wrote the song. He's out there, right? Kind of out there. It ain't out there for him. Out there for everybody else. Living on the road, my friend, was gonna keep you free and clean. Now you wear your skin like iron and your breath's as hard as kerosene. You weren't your mama's only son, but her favorite one, it seems. She began to cry when you said goodbye. You sank into your dreams. Pancho was a bandit, boys. His horse was fast as polished steel. Wore his gun outside his pants for all the honest world to feel. Pancho met his match, you know, on the borders down in Mexico, and nobody heard his dying words. And that's the way it goes. And all the federales say they could have had him any day. They only let him hang around out of kindness, I suppose. Well, Lefty, he can't sing the blues all night long like he used to. The dust that Pancho bit down south ended up in Lefty's mouth. The day they laid poor Pancho low, Lefty left for Ohio, and where he got the bread to go, oh, that ain't nobody knows. And all the federales say they could have had him any day. They only let him slip away out of kindness, I suppose. Pick it, and it won't ever heal. Well, the poets tell how Pancho fell. Lefty's living in a cheap hotel. The border's quiet and Cleveland's cold. So the story ends, we're told. Pancho needs your prayers, it's true. Save a few for Lefty too. He just did what he had to do. Oh, and now he's growing old. And all the federales say they could have had him any day. They only let him go so wrong out of kindness, I suppose. A few gray federales say they could have had him any day. They only let him go so wrong out of kindness, I suppose.
Good old Towns Van Zant. So I'm back, my friends. And the person who called before, if you want to call back, the line is open. Let us see what's going on with the chat here. Found Thomas Bodden Reese through you, Germ. Speaking of entertainment, that guy is a character. Yeah, I just saw when I was searching around for a song. that he did a stream recently that I didn't see, that I didn't catch. Why Adam Green should love Jesus. I didn't watch that one. Was Jesus the original Hitler? Is the thumbnail. That's pretty funny. He's definitely a funny character. That's Thomas Podden Reese. That's all I could say about him. Is he's a very funny character. HT really sets off my small hat alarm, somebody says. You know, he doesn't set off necessarily my small hat alarm, but I would love to have a conversation with him and really like ask him about his history. Because, you know, the Handsome Truth... see if I could find it. I found a video the other day where somebody showed his early internet presence as a rapper. He was like a wannabe rapper, and now he has become this, 1488 Jas the Gews type extreme rhetoric influencer, and I would love to know how he got from point A to point B. And I would also love to know, he Handsome Truth posted a video the other day of his workshop where he's got all his flyers and brochures and stuff that he's been manufacturing, and he's got like a room full of printers and automatic paper folders, and I'd love to know how this is being funded and whether he has a day job or if he's existing purely. The video of him rapping. Does anybody have that video? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? I'm trying to find it on Twitter. I'm not sure if I'm gonna... I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to find it. But yeah, so I'd love to just have a conversation with him and ask him about his personal history and Doobie the Wop. That's right. Yeah, Doobie the Wop. Maybe I'll find it with that keyword. I'm still not finding it. Or was it Shuby the Wop? Well, I can't find it. Maybe another day. One of HT's guys harassed two guys eating dinner, yelling at them and calling them Jews. As far as I know, the guy had no idea if they were actual Jews. Yeah, he was on an ad for pectoral surgery. Yeah, he got his gynecomastia milkers removed. But yeah, without any shooby-dawop. Without any like prejudice, okay? I'm not gonna like say one way or the other because, like I've said in the past. Oh wait, here's a clip.
No, man, I don't use the N-word. The N-word was created by Jews. I don't support that word. The N-word was created by two Jews, and they used that as weaponry to, do essentially what they did to the black culture. So I don't agree with supporting the N-word.
Hitler, nigger! Put it up, nigger! Put it up! Put it up, nigger! Ugly ass fat lip, nigger! Shut up! Hi, nigger face! Look at these big nigger lips. Big nigger lips. Dripping on the floor. Big nigger lips. Want kids plus more. Big nigger lips. Fuck blood, fuck crips. Big nigger lips. Hey, what's up, nigger face? Bunch of niggers! Filthy niggers! Yo! Fat nigger!
That shit's gonna get my stream banned. I shouldn't play that. Hanging out with someone with dildos. I don't know. It's that kind of stuff. I in the past I've talked about disregarding optics, but like that is definitely the kind of optics that I would not want to be associated with. Like, it's just that there's nothing redeeming about it.
Icicle, ride him like a bicycle, threesomes on tricycle. The sex is phenomenal, but boobies are bionicle. Some find it comical. If you don't believe me, you can read it in a chronicle. I'm Mr. Manadio, that's my real name. My claim to fame is fuck your dame and sniff your pain. So on that note, you better guide your hoe, cause here I come, right down her throat. Bitch, my name is Shuby, and what I like to do, rap about those hoochies, bitch.
Like, and I get that people grow. I get that people change. They develop in their ideas. They sort of people go through different phases, but it seems like he was already kind of a fully grown adult at this point. He was already like at least in his 20s when he was making that type of stuff. And he's got a Wikipedia page. It's just harder. It's harder to understand how someone changes that much once they've already reached like their 20s. Once they've already reached their adulthood. When I was a teenager, I was a libertarian. But by the time I had reached my mid-20s, I haven't changed in my opinions and overall outlook on life since before I started the channel. I mean, my overall outlook on the world really hasn't changed since I was like 24, 25, something like that. So it's hard to understand. I would like to understand. I'd like to give him a chance to explain this transformation and this path that he's taken, and explain like how he's able to afford this lifestyle of like full-time anti-Semitic activist. It's interesting to me. I'd like for him to speak for himself on these topics. I don't know if he's ever like gotten really deep into. Okay, look, two rap in 2013 and 2015. He produced these rap albums. When was he born? He was born in 82. So in 2013, 82, 92, 20, he was already in his 30s. You know, it's hard. The older you get, the harder it is to understand like these drastic changes that can happen. Especially like once you're in your 30s. Like I can't imagine myself having any kind of like major ideological transformation. I'm 32. So anyway, not like condemning him, not making any accusations. It's just weird and interesting, and I'd like for him to explain how this happened in sort of an in-depth way. But he gets a ton of donations. Yeah, he must. You know, before I started my channel, this is something that I thought about getting into a little bit tonight. Before I started my channel, the type of content that I was interested in, like my backstory is sort of an autistic focus on. This is my this is my backstory. This is the first channel I ever made. That's my real name. And you can even see like one of the last videos that I made, comparative geography. I was talking about like a geographic explanation of race and culture. But before that, it was just pure science, ontology, physics, and of course a video of me shirtless playing a didgeridoo. So I guess this is my Shooby DeWop moment. That's my that's my Shooby DeWop backstory. Also, I've done some this is when I was a big time libertarian. Gosh, 11 years ago. So I was 21 here.
As I walk through the prison of Empire
it's still showing.
US, I wonder if
Oh, wait. Okay. Here.
there's a place that's got liberty left, cause the schools have been indoctrinating so long that even the most intelligent of minds are pawns. Most of the people they attack simply do not deserve it. Death by smoking grass, you know that's unheard of. You better watch where you're smoking and what you're toking, or they'll stick you in a cage, you know that ain't no joke. I really hate to trip, but you gotta know.
Is it still frozen on TBR? Or is it coming up now? There, yeah, it's on.
As they grow, the money goes into their pockets, mo. Fool, they're the kind of folks who aren't ashamed of their crimes. No need for cover of night, they'll stick you up in the daylight. Who've been spending most our lives living in a statist paradise. Keep spending most our lives living in a statist paradise. Keep spending most our lives living in a statist paradise. Keep spending most our lives living in a statist paradise.
So that's my Shooby to Wop moment. Here's another one I did. I was 21 years old here.
Some people say a man is made out of mud. A statesman is made out of lots of bull crud. Crud and crap and garbage to boot. And propaganda don't get you, then he's gonna shoot. You keep printing up cash and what do you get? A pile of worthless paper and you're deeper in debt. Oh, IRS, don't you call me, cause I won't go. Taxes are theft, I don't owe you my soul. I was born one morning when the sun didn't shine. Debts were in my name and they weren't even mine. Social security and wars overseas, because the government says we do whatever we please. You keep printing up cash and what do you get? A pile of worthless paper and you're deeper in debt. Oh, IRS, don't you call me, cause I won't go. Taxes are theft, I don't owe you my soul.
16 tons. Yeah, and then I was also talking about this was the most popular video on my channel here. Simulations cannot possibly be conscious. This is the libertarian equivalent to Taylor Swift. Shit. Yeah, simulation theory refuted. Just basic. This was entirely like a conceptual analysis based on definitions and, you know, making clear, unambiguous definitions of key terms like conscious, simulation, existence. So this is 8 minutes of me just like going through the semantics of what a simulation is, and the fact that it's just a concept, and concepts cannot be conscious, concepts cannot exist. I did silly little things like this.
If you don't otherwise have the tools to analyze information, then one is susceptible to all manner of forces of thought that go on around you. And like I say, by then for me, I don't have the energy to fight all of that.
Right.
But I just teach people sort of how to think about information, and then I walk away.
Reification, that's like one of the main problems of modern physics, turning abstract concepts into physical objects. Any mathematician who claims that abstract concepts like forces, fields, energy, information, space-time, charges, etc. can move, for example, wave, flow, carry, etc., any types of movement, or have a structure, a physical shape and structure, like being bent, being warped, being stretched or dilated, is an irrational idiot who cannot understand the fundamentals of thought or reasoning. Only objects can move and have shape in reality. Concepts are relations between objects and are not objects themselves. And I still believe this today, by the way. I still believe all of this. It's just been sort of, I've constructed other ideas on top of it, like, you know, this doesn't contradict my current thought. There's been a continuity of thought in my adulthood.
Sphere. Now, when someone would run by a flag in zero atmosphere, does it create any wind? Is
No,
there
not at all.
anything?
Nothing.
So if a guy hops by a flag and the flag blows in the breeze, what's causing that? Is that a...
Oh, they're talking about the moon landing here. It's in the video, in one of the videos of the astronauts on the moon, he's hopping by the flag. You could see the flag moves, but there's no air on the moon. So what could have... Uh-oh, did I miss a call? No. What could have caused the flag to move if there's no air to move it? And this is what Tyson says.
Faked footage? Or
Well,
is it a flag blows in the breeze? Does it create any wind? Is
No,
there
not at all.
anything?
Nothing.
So if a guy hops by a flag and the flag blows in the breeze, what's causing that? Is that a faked footage or is
it depends.
fake video?
Yeah, yes. If you walk by a flag no, it's not has nothing to do with zero G. It has to do with no atmosphere.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So you walk by a flag, there is no breeze that is left behind you in the wake
Right.
of your steps, and depending on how much air you displace. Things next to you might respond to that. If there's no atmosphere, no, there's no way to get that information to the flag. If there's no atmosphere, no, there's no way to get that information to the flag. Get that information to the flag. Information to the flag.
So I'm kind of just mocking him here because, like, obviously a breeze moving a flag has nothing to do with information in any rational sense. It has to do with a physical object bumping into another object. This is not transferring information. This is just physical shapes interacting in accordance with their shape. So this is the kind of stuff that I...
Does GPS prove the impossible? The engineers and technologists who study relativity frequently...
I also used to really get into the video editing. This is like my rudimentary self-taught video production quality here.
Claim that GPS is verification or proof of Einstein's surrealistic concept of time dilation. But when we blast a clock into high altitude and accelerate it around the planet in orbit, is it time that is being stretched and pulled upon? Or is it merely the clock? Let's see what the experts have to say. General relativity predicts that time will appear to run slower under stronger gravitational pull. The clocks on board the satellites will therefore seem to run faster than a clock on Earth. Furthermore, special relativity predicts that because the satellite clocks are moving relative to a clock on Earth, they will appear to run slower. The whole GPS network has to make allowances for these effects, proof that relativity has a real impact. The explanation Wikipedia provides for these effects is thus: time dilation is an actual difference of elapsed time between two events, as measured by observers, either moving relative to each other or differently situated from gravitational masses. An accurate clock at rest with respect...
I don't know where I got this music, by the way.
...to one observer may be measured to tick at a different rate when compared to a second observer's own equally accurate clocks. This effect arises neither from technical aspects of the clocks nor from the fact that signals need time to propagate, but from the nature of space-time itself. I highlighted two phrases in this explanation because these two lines contradict each other. Is there an actual difference in elapsed time? Or is it that the ticks of the clocks you've counted are different? Yet somehow they know that it is not a technical aspect of the clocks. This is double talk, and only serves to confuse the issue. Let's analyze these statements further.
So what I'm saying is, the Wikipedia page says that this can't be a technical issue with the clocks. Like, it has to be that time itself is... What the hell happened there? That time itself has to be different in one place relative to another. But what I would argue is that Guy Harrison says, if speeds are constant, you can adjust for time dilation. No. Well, that's what they know, that if it's going at a certain speed or if it is at a certain altitude, that basically the clock is going to give you a different reading. And instead of assuming that there's something happening physically to that clock that's causing it to speed up or slow down because of the speed that it's traveling or because of the lack of gravity on that physical object, that's what's causing it's an issue with the actual mechanism behind the clock itself. That's what I would argue. There's something that changes the speed of the quartz vibration in the clock, or the atomic, the way that the atomic clock is releasing its particles that they're able to measure. Something physical is happening there, and it's not time dilating. It's not time changing or stretching or dilating. It's that the physical condition of the clock itself alters the rate of either vibration of the atom or emission of some particles from the atom, or whatever type of clock they're using.
All that this
an interesting, I think I'll get into this,
proves is that clocks slow down under certain conditions. So it is not time that runs slower under greater gravitational pull. The only real thing running and slowing down here is the clock. This could be rationally explained as a physical effect caused by greater resistance to motion resulting from gravity. Kind of like an old lady who has fallen and can't get up. The greater the pull of gravity, the harder it is for anything to move. But don't forget this statement. Furthermore, special relativity predicts that because the satellite's clocks are moving relative to a clock on Earth, they will appear to run slower. Notice here how they've switched from time running slower to the clock running slower. This is a crucial conceptual difference. But perhaps this is caused by the constant push and pull on the clock occurring when accelerating in an orbit. Sort of like how you feel when you're on a merry-go-round. You feel a constant tug yanking you outwards, and this tug could be why the clock in orbit ends up running slower. But even going through and explaining all of this seems ridiculous to me anyway. How have we gotten to the point in science where physicists claim that abstract concepts such as time and space are warping, stretching, and dilating, when these abstract concepts have no shape or location in reality? How do we physically stretch an abstract concept? In physics, we have to take statements at face value, literally. There is nothing existing in reality called time, which can be literally stretched and dilated like bubblegum or an eye pupil. This is, at best, a confusing metaphor, being passed off as a physical explanation for why clocks run slower under certain conditions. Why do they do this? Well, I don't know. Maybe to open the door for science fiction nerds to gobble up these ideas and use them as proof that their beloved Doctor Who-like time travel fantasies are really possible? I guess there's just more religionists left in the world than there are rational thinkers. Here to run slower.
Here's the last thing I'll say on this topic is general relativity predicts that time will run slower under stronger gravitational pull. Okay? So the closer you are to Earth, the slower time gets. The farther you are from Earth, the faster time goes. But that depends on the clock. If we are measuring time with an hourglass, with like an old school sand in the hourglass, which is just as much of a clock as any other clock. If we're measuring time with the hourglass, then it stands to reason that the stronger gravity is, the faster time will go. It's the complete opposite. You get closer to the stronger gravitational pull, that sand is going to fall faster. Whereas if you put an hourglass out in orbit, it's barely going to move at all, if anything. So does that mean time stops? If you're measuring time with an hourglass and you put it out in orbit, does time stop? To me, it's obvious. It depends on the clock you're using. The physical forces working on the clock are going to change the way that the clock is functioning anyway. So the point is, yeah, this is the type of stuff that I was I was really, and I still am. I still believe pretty much all of this. I haven't
First, science
gone past this.
Rational explanations side there with Steve Crothers and physics. And science is divided in two parts.
And there's good old Bill Gatey. Gromby says, "What the fuck? That seems like the most obviously fallacious example." And what's fallacious about it? It's a clock is a clock. A clock is a clock. People, the first clocks were they measured water droplets. You know, you take the most sophisticated modern clock, and all it is counting the number of beats on a steady rhythm of something moving at a constant rate. Even these, super modern atomic clocks, the way that it works is it's counting the number of vibrations that an atom makes. So anyway, does anybody else want to call in? Otherwise, I think I'm going to hang it up for the night because it's almost midnight where I'm at, and it's almost 3 hours of content live streaming here. So I don't know if you could even call it content. We've pretty much just been bullshitting, having a good conversation. So anybody else want to call in on any topic? Other than that, Gromby, if you want to call in and we could debate physics, we could do that. Or maybe next week or another day we can have a full discussion on physics and rational science. I still love that stuff. It's so interesting. It's so much fun. But and we never talked about Israel, but that's okay. We don't have to talk about Israel. I was going to talk about the Israel bombed a Russian airbase. Am I remembering this correctly? Bombed a warehouse into Russian airbase. So, yet another little example of some chaos. Leading up to the election. So we'll see. I believe Trump is going to win somehow, and that there's going to be that there's going to be something big that will coincide with Trump winning. But all right, fellas, it's been good chatting. I'm gonna try to do another stream this weekend where we can get into some more schizo takes and some more Wikipedia rabbit holes, and maybe I'll look more into the Cuban stuff that our Cuban friend brought up earlier. But there's always something new to get into. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Hope you all have a good night, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.